Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Hey, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you. We're talking today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast about a question that I feel I get this question every day. I get it a lot from new clients. It's common that at some point in time during somebody's workout program, they're going to ask this question. That has to do with time. If you heard my Level of Wellness podcast, I talked about the 10 different myths of health, fitness, and wellness. And one of my listed was the time of day. You know, there's a perfect time of day to work out. And that's a question that we get a lot about when I should work out. I call it the inevitable question because, like I say, somebody's going to ask us that. And they've been asking us that since day one in the business. I want to jump straight to a particular time of day because it's one that people seem to align with success, and that's the concept of the early morning workout. And the person that gets up early in the morning and works out is typically the more successful person. You hear that portrayed a lot. And many new clients, especially our New Year's resolution folks, that were really wanting to change their life. I'm sure you know that the second most popular New Year's resolution is behind, of course, getting organized, is getting fit. And people that make the New Year's resolution changes, and they typically want to make an incredible lifestyle change. So it's not only getting organized and getting their life right, but working out, getting in shape, and getting up early in the morning in order to do this. So they're not only tackling the fitness challenge, but they're tackling an entire schedule challenge. There's lots of research conducted in order to determine the optimum time for exercise. I've got studies that are dating back 30 years or more, and I remember some studies early on in my practice. I didn't want to go back farther than that because there's so much work on it, but we're going to go over some of those today. The question is so prevalent that arguments have broken out in fitness summits and fitness meetings, national meetings that I've been to at a ACSM summit. I want to say it was 2003. It was in Vegas, and one of the greats in the exercise physiology world, and for a long time in the music world too. His name is Len Kravitz, and not the same individual, but Len Kravitz is a fantastic exercise physiologist out of University of New Mexico. You probably heard me talk about him when I was talking about muscle and the Muscle podcast and the podcast on recovery. So it's fantastic. And he was asked that question. Now, you're sitting in a room here with a few hundred people. They're all fitness professionals. These are like-minded individuals. And somebody asked him the question, well, what about time of day? Now, he feels like he's not talking to, of course, the general public. He's talking to fitness professionals, and he had an opinion on that. And he even stated, everybody knew this was going to be his opinion. He even stated, hey, this is my opinion. This is, this is what I think, and this is why I think it. And he gave a great answer, and he gave why he thought that answer, with the understanding that he's talking to fitness professionals. He understands that we take all things into account, but he was just answering the optimum time of day. After that presentation, there were a lot of people there to talk to Len Kravitz. And like I say, he's one of the greats in the field. He's a wealth of knowledge. There must have been 10 of them in line, and they were there to challenge, either challenge or agree or argue with him about the time of day question. Almost as crazy as, what's good to eat and what's not good to eat. You want to start a real fight amongst fitness enthusiasts, talk about good food and bad food, which, of course, you and I know is a lie. Anyway, not what I want to talk about. I want to stay on the time idea today. Is there a definite best time to work out? If there's a definite best, then is there a definite worst time to work out? What's the difference between these two? What actually dictates this? I'm going to go through what the science says about this. Some of the studies, I could be here you would miss work tomorrow if I kept talking about all the studies on this subject. So I've tried to narrow it down and show you what the experts are thinking, why they pick these particular times, and what are the factors involved in it. Okay, listen now. If you've heard any of my podcasts, you know what that's all about. I am at 72 ounces today. I hope you're tracking along. When I take a drink of water, I want you to take a drink of water because you know, as well as I do, water is the fountain of youth. Yes, and if you are unsure of that, then check out my water podcast. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Just like the Hey Bob game, except for the fact that we're not Hey Bob. By the way, I had somebody ask me that the other day. Did not know what Hey Bob was. So let me explain. Hey Bob is from the Bob Newhart Show. There was a drinking game that was formed with the Bob Newhart Show that every time somebody said Hey Bob, somebody took a drink. Now, they weren't drinking water, but that's what we're drinking. We're drinking water, and every time you hear me take a drink, I want you taking a drink also because I want you to make sure you've properly hydrated and keep plenty of water on board. Okay, back to the scientists and talking about the time of day. Well, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, there's an exercise physiologist by the name of Anthony Hackney who's done a few studies on this, and his comments about morning workouts. And I'll just go ahead and start there because I'm sure that a lot of people think that I'm going to begin and end on morning workouts, and because, like I said earlier, that seems to be aligned with successful people. Well, working out in the morning, there's some benefits to that, especially on an empty stomach. It's the best way, since you're on an empty stomach, to burn stored fat. And so it does make it ideal for weight loss. That's largely because the body's hormonal composition in the morning is set up to support that goal. And when they're talking about the body's hormonal composition, when you listen to the podcast on metabolism, we talk about the different hormones that are involved in that. And when you're on an empty stomach, it's going to stimulate hormones a different way. And you're going to be more susceptible or more apt to get into burning stored fat because, as we heard on the fat podcast, I talked about fat as a stored energy. That's what your body uses to store energy. So it's going to be more apt to go for that stored energy and burn that as energy for the exercise rather than food stores, because there are none, because we're running on an empty stomach. In the early morning hours, you have a hormonal profile that would predispose you to better metabolism of fat. People naturally have elevated levels of cortisol and growth hormone in the morning, both of which are involved in metabolism. You know that if you've listened to the Metabolism podcast. So as he says, you'll draw more energy from your fat reserves that can potentially help with weight loss. Research also suggests that exercisers may have less of an appetite throughout the day, which could also keep you from putting on pounds. There's several reasons for this. You hear people talking about, or you've probably heard comments from exercise enthusiasts, also diet programs. They talk about exercise being an appetite suppressant. There's a lot of truth to that, and that's why they say this, that you have less of an appetite through the day. They're actually talking about cravings that we talked about in the cravings episode and how that's affecting your brain. Also, if you're predisposed to starting your body off with something that's got a chemical in it, then it's going to teach your body to crave that chemical even more so, even throughout the day, which is why I recommend you take in a good amount of water first thing in the morning. Take in a good 8-10 ounces, even more for some people. And I'm careful about what I recommend because I'm not sure where you are on your water goal, but a nice amount of that in the morning does prime you for the rest of the day. So it's one thing you can ingest, and you can use that change in the appetite in the morning in a good way by drinking water. Even if you hate early alarms, working out first thing in the morning, it really can become second nature. This is a study from the Journal of Physiology. It found that exercising at 7 a.m. may shift your body clock earlier, meaning you will feel more alert in the morning and get tired earlier in the evening. And a lot of people look into that, especially insomniacs and people that have trouble falling asleep at night and what have you. There's a reason that happens. When anybody talks about a shift in the body clock or shift in the body systems, whatever, there's a reason why that stuff happens. It's not just some kind of cosmic whatever. Your body lives in a part of what we call homeostasis. It wants to stay there. It also takes 21 days to create a habit. We talked about that in the Lifestyle Change podcast. It takes 66 days to make it a lifestyle change. So if you're getting up and exercising at 7 a.m., obviously you're eventually going to shift your body clock to the earlier time. You're going to, even though your body is becoming more efficient because you're exercising, you will have more of a tendency to get tired earlier. And it may not be earlier if you've never worked out before and you start exercising. Of course, now you're going to get more hours in the day, but if you work out earlier, you're going to go to sleep earlier, if that makes sense. So you can kind of change your body clock. That same article in Journal of Physiology talked about the fact that if you start that morning routine, you have that early morning workout time, and you get into that, they say healthy habit. I'm going to say lifestyle change because just 21 days ain't going to do it. It's going to have to be a good 66 days, a good lifestyle change. It's actually easier to stick to. More observational research, but still some research saying that you have more of a tendency to stick with it. There's also some information about mental health and morning workout. It goes back to what we were saying about feeling more alert at 7 a.m. if you actually work out at that time. As I tell my clients, you work out first thing in the morning, you end up at work about an hour and a half, 2 hours before anybody else does. And I'm talking mentally, not figuratively. When you got somebody that doesn't work out in the morning, they show up at 7 a.m. to go to work, well, they're still coming out of their slumber. They're going to have their coffee. They're going to, be slow to start. You work out, and then you show up at work where you're an hour and a half ahead. You're more awake. You're more alert. It's a lot about morning workouts. So I figured, most likely you thought that's where I was going to go with this. I was definitely going to talk morning workouts is great, and that's where you should go. Well, there's some science for afternoon workouts too. If you can swing a lunchtime workout, that same exercise physiologist from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Hackney, said that it's not a bad second choice, he said. I say first choice, and then you'll see why in a minute, but it's not a bad choice especially if you're trying to do a very long or rigorous routine. Now, the reason being, if you think about what we were talking about a minute ago, morning workouts are ideal for burning fat and losing weight, but you're doing that on an empty stomach. And even though you're burning fat stores and you're burning energy, it's taking longer to get into that energy. Fat burns like a log. It takes a while to get that thing lit and what have you. And when you've got ready energy on board, you're typically going to have a more effective workout. You're going to lift a little heavier. You're going to go a little faster. You're going to be a little more aggressive. And it's going to be a deeper workout. It's going to be more intense. One preliminary paper from 2018 found that your body naturally burns about 10% more calories in the late afternoon compared to the early morning and late night. Now, the researchers looked at bodies at rest. They looked at pretty much everything, but they said they couldn't draw a firm conclusion. It makes sense to me that in the afternoon, you've got ready energy on board, like we talked about. You've had lunch, you've had breakfast, you've got something in your stomach. So you're going to feel more energetic, a little more up and alive. Plus, you've been awake. I mean, let's face it, your resting heart rate is going to be higher in the afternoon than it is typically first thing in the morning, unless you're panicked about something. But your resting heart rate is going to be a little higher. So you're going to be not groggy. You're not dragging through that first set or that first few minutes on the treadmill. You're hitting the ground running, let's put it that way. So it stands to reason you would burn at least 10% more calories in the late afternoon than you would first thing in the morning. There's some arguments there, obviously, for the afternoon workout, and it's mostly dealing with energy. But let's move on. I mean, evening workouts. For many people, that's the most convenient time to work out, is after work. That's their time. That's when it's going to be possible. There's a common belief that evening exercise perks you up so much that it's difficult to fall asleep later. Now, we hear that a lot. People don't want to go and for a run and try to go right to sleep, and that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of difficult to do. You've got to go through a cool down process, and you've got to drop back down to your resting heart rate. But going back to that same journal I was talking about, they found that exercising between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. delays the body clock, translating to later bedtimes. There are exercise physiologists that actually disagree with that, because in that same summation that I was reading about that study, when I was doing the research on this, I was looking at what the most recent studies were, and this Journal of Physiology was one of the most recent. It was wonderful because Hackney, the exercise physiologist I was talking about earlier, actually came in and said, no, that's not true. What they said, that study, I'm not so sure about that. He didn't agree with it. It rings true to what I was telling you earlier about Vegas, about the exercise physiologist arguing over the perfect time, but he's not convinced that's the case. He says the evidence suggests that as long as you're not exercising, showering, and then immediately jumping into bed and going to sleep, it doesn't interfere with your sleep pattern at all. He says a stress-relieving activity like a cool down, a dynamic stretching, or something like may even help you sleep better if it's done at night. And that makes sense because a lot of people use meditation. They use some kind of even stretching before they go to sleep. Lower the heart rate down. So is that something you're familiar with?
Actually, my wife has been doing a whole new cardio routine here lately, and she has to do it at night because of work and the kid and stuff like that. And she will do her workout, and then she'll go take a nice hot bath with her lavender oils or whatever fancy stuff she has. And she said she's actually sleeping better by doing her workout later at night and then using that cool down period, and she's resting better at night.
I wouldn't doubt it at all. And because, of course, exercise does bring your resting heart rate down immediately after, and Hackney's right about this, immediately after it's going to be spiked and you're trying to dive in bed and go to sleep, that's not going to happen. But if you've gone through the cool down period, like Pablo was telling me his wife is going through, then yeah, she's probably going to sleep better. So
now, if she could just get the wet towels off the bed, that'd be great.
Listen, I can do wonders in here, not miracles. I don't have an answer for that one. So anyway, with the evening, you've got food on board as opposed to the morning. And so you're still going to have some of those benefits of the 10% more calorie burn, as they say, and I actually say more. So while the research about morning workouts and weight loss is more established, some evidence suggests that nighttime workouts really are the way to go. They can also set people up for weight loss. And the reason for this makes sense. Now, I don't have to go to the Journal of Experimental Physiology, which had a study about this. It disrupts the idea of coming home tired and in many cases not really controlling our calories through the day. So overeating at night. It disrupts that. Exercise and appetite suppressant. So some people work out at lunch in order to keep their lunch brief, and they'll have to have lunch after they work out. And so they have a less of a tendency to overeat during that time, which is a plus. Same thing happens at night. There's an addition to this, though, and because they say it disrupts the pattern of sleep. Over time, it can reduce levels of ghrelin. Now, we talked about this. This is a hunger-stimulating hormone. Therefore, since it does disrupt that hunger-stimulating hormone, it can lend itself to weight loss or management. And really, that is the secret. Disrupting that hormone of ghrelin is what exercise does as far as an appetite suppressant. I have not seen any studies that talk much more about the science behind appetite suppressant outside of lowering the hormone ghrelin. how do you go about picking the right time? Because I've given you pretty good arguments for all of it. A lot of folks, when I talk to them, they say, Garrett, give me the one answer. And I just gave you 3. That's not what I wanted. I want the one answer. That's what I want. Just like what's the best exercise to do? Just tell me that one, And my favorite answer to that is, of course, I could tell you, but then, of course, I'd have to kill you because it's a closely guarded secret amongst exercise physiologists. So, by the way, before we go forward, I want to tell you how to get in touch with the show if you have any questions about this, or like a lot of people, you want to argue about the best time to work out. Hey, look, I'll be glad to handle that. So you can call us on our phone line at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Now, it's a voicemail, but don't worry. We check it like a bodily function. Please leave your message on there. Leave your comment or question. Leave us your name, and also tell us where you're calling from. We'd love to hear from you. So you can also contact us at my Twitter account, which is @TeamPE. That's @TeamPE. Back to the right time, picking the right time. Well, keep in mind that as we talked about in a couple podcasts, but one of them I know that we talked about this with metabolism, the idea of homeostasis. Your body, everybody's body has a component of homeostasis, wanting to get in a particular area and stay there. The Journal of Strength and Conditioning did some research also and backed this up, and I found this over and over again with people creating lifestyle and creating habits as it pertains to homeostasis, that if you work out every day at 5:30 p.m., your body learns to be more efficient at that time. Just like increasing your amounts of water, your body learns to adjust for that. And as long as you continue to keep that schedule, 21 days to create a habit, 66 days for a lifestyle change, your internal clock will change. It's no different than feeding your dog at the same time. If you're feeding your dog at the same time every day, believe me, close to around that time every single day, he's going to be or she's going to be barking at you. They're going to bark incessantly. They're going to let you know. Your body's going to get used to it. Your body's going to change, and that's going to become its homeostasis, and you will stay in that pattern. But something also to take into account, not only homeostasis or whether or not you're actually going to change homeostasis, but lifestyle adjustments. You know that I'm all about the finding your level of wellness, and I talk a lot about lifestyle adjustments, but how much of your entire life are you going to need to upset in order to accommodate a certain workout time? Now, if you find that on an empty stomach you're going to burn more fat and what have you, that sounds great, but if you have to totally turn your world upside down, is that really going to be the right time for you? How much does that harm the body? I mean, let's say you're going to get up early and you're not an early person. Well, you're going to cause some stress in your life. Well, as we talked about in the stress episode, we talked about that's a trigger for a weight gainer. That's a typical point where you can start trying to put more and more weight because you're eating and satisfying cravings in order to combat the feelings you're having from the stress. Talk about family disruption. It's going to rock the world with the family. You're not going to be able to take the kids to school or something, or just causing exhaustion. Maybe you're going to be super tired at work or at night. Maybe you get home and do things with your kids or whatever, and it's going to cause problems there. You got to take into account recovery. You got to take into account nutrition. Your lunch may be interrupted, but are you able to get in the right amount of protein for recovery as far as lunch is concerned? And making sure that you're not having supper too late, overeating at that time, or just a caloric imbalance. Consider lifestyle adjustments. Don't just consider, hey, I heard that working out in the morning, I heard that working out at afternoon burns 10% more calories. I'm going to do that. Well, you may have a zero-sum game if you're causing that kind of stress in your life. Another thing to consider is consistency. Can you manage this lifestyle change? That's the problem we run into a lot with New Year's resolutions is, got a great idea. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to hit the wall. I'm going to go to the gym 20 times. That's what's going to happen. And you hit the wall because you're not able to maintain that. You're not able to be consistent about it. That causes yo-yo dieting and problems that way. So will your schedule or time demands change in the near future? And as far as near future, if you need a point of reference, go with 66 days. What can I do consistently for 66 days? And if you can't, and it's going to change, or your schedule changes. Maybe your schedule changes because of seasons with your child. Your child's at football practice and they do band camp or whatever they do. And within 66 days, it changes. Well, you've got to take that into effect. If you can't do something consistently for 66 days, what are you going to do when that time changes? What are you going to do when you have that lifestyle change? Other things to take into account, of course, do you have time to shower before work, time to eat dinner, getting back to the office after lunch? There's a lot of things to be concerned about, more so than just the numbers of how much you're going to burn during that time, or how much, if you have a more effective workout in the afternoon, is it going to work with your lifestyle? So, well, how do you find this time? I mean, those are things to be concerned with. So first thing is, do you have a convenient time in mind? Do what I say, start where you are. All right, I'm going to work out, I'm going to exercise. Okay, what do you have in mind? Your first answer typically is your best. And it's the one that comes into your mind, not always what you say. But But the one that comes to your mind, I can definitely work out at 3:30, 4 o'clock. I can get home at that time. Okay, well, that first answer is typically your best. When are your distractions and challenges the least? I don't care if it's ideal that you work out in the morning. It would be best for me to do that. But when are your distractions and your challenges the least? A lot of times for people, it is the morning. But maybe it is the evening when you get off work, like Pablo's wife. Change is possible. You can change it as you go. But you want to do this mental assessment prior to getting going in a program. And are you trying to adjust to a new time? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. All right, this new time's coming up. I got kids going back to school, so therefore I'm going to make sure that I'm moving from that afternoon time to my morning. Okay, start planning for it. Plan for this change. Okay, it's going to happen on this day. This is what I'll need to do. I'll need to have clothes ready. I'll need to plan on taking a shower at the facility and what have you. As far as the times of day, I've pointed out reasons why morning, afternoon, evening are all good. But remember, the goal is exercise. Time is not really your number one priority. Planning for a successful program that keeps your focus in the right place is what you're after. So always keep that in mind, and that should give you the notes as far as finding your perfect time of day. And speaking of time, in a few episodes, I'm going to have a series start, 5-part series that I'm doing on the lie of aging. Many people know this is my mantra, but the idea that time passes on a calendar makes us deteriorate is absurd. It's an absolute lie. Why we have believed this false pretense all our lives, and I'll show you how that belief is killing us. I'll show you why you can stay fit, strong, virile, energetic, or as we describe it, young, forever. It's all within our control. It's coming up in a few episodes. Make sure you catch every one of them. Hey, this is Garrett Williamson. This has been the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. And remember, most importantly, seek and find your own level of wellness. And as always, stay hydrated.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.